Welcome to the Finjan Show. I'm your host, Faris Alami, and today we have a great guest, Cathy Nesbitt. Thanks for being with us, Cathy.
Thank you, Faris. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, what a story. And I thought, what an interesting business to be in. And, also from your perspective, a female in the business is probably rare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's worm composting for anyone that's listening.
Yeah, well, maybe we could take a step back and just tell the listeners, who is Cathy and what do you do?
Thank you. So I'm Cathy Nesbitt. I'm in Canada, just north of Toronto, a largest city in Canada. And my company is Cathy's Crawly Composters. It's indoor composting with worms.
So interesting. And Cathy, why would you start that kind of business? I mean, that's a pretty interesting business to start. Why would you start that?
Thank you. Yeah. So as an entrepreneur, I think we see a problem and then we're like, oh, I have a solution for that. So if that's anybody, there's a business there. And that's what happened. Our landfill for the Toronto area closed in 2002. And we started exporting our garbage to the US, to Michigan, in fact. Sorry about that. 1,000 trucks a week. And 6 million people in the greater Toronto area, half live in condos, townhouses without outdoor space for composting. And so this is indoor composting with worms, managing our food scraps and paper and turning it into nature's finest fertilizer.
Wow. And why would you do that? I mean, what drove you to do that? What's your background? How did you even start with such a business?
Wow. So we don't have a lot of time. I'll just give you the Coles Note version, the little version. So our landfill closed. I saw a solution as an avid gardener and composter. I knew the value of the worm compost. When I bought my house, I looked after a teacher's worm bin. That was 93. And it was a disaster because I had worms in my house and I didn't want that, but I wanted the black gold. And I think we should try things, not let somebody tell us, oh, you won't like that. Do it yourself and see. And so I took it on. I said, I'm never doing that again. And then I got my psych degree in 2000, got a job at a group home, and they didn't compost. And when I talked to them about composting, they had 10 homes and a farm. They said, we don't need the fertilizer because we have cows. So I was like, wow, people don't connect what they do. They're producing all of this food waste and paying all this money to get rid of it when they had a farm. Like, why not just have they had a vocational program. They had the clients coming they had a greenhouse. It really, they needed the fertilizer. They did. And I think if you don't need the fertilizer, you could just sell it. Like, there's, again, a business there. So beautiful. So I was a secretary for 20 years, then got the job at the group home, thought I had come home. That was just a little blip in my life. I loved it. I loved working with that client. And it's so beautiful because now it's come around full circle. I wasn't able to work with management. There was too much politics. And I came home one day and there was an ad in the paper. It said, are you a woman? Do you have a business idea? And I was like, yes. It was a 6-month course to start a business. So I turned to my husband. I said, I'm quitting my job. I'm taking this course. I'm going to start a worm company. Won't that be fun?
Wow, what a story. I mean, you walk, this is amazing to share. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's so important to break some of these myths that you have to have done something for so long before you start a business or be an entrepreneur. And to me, you're a great example of someone who's worked somewhere, most of your life. And then you decided one day, I see a problem, I would like to fix it. I know a little bit about it. My passion has been spent, over the years gardening. Maybe I could leverage that. And that's really what you did. And you look at you today, right? 20 years later.
20 years.
That's
Can
amazing.
you imagine? Yeah, it's funny. When I started, I would have a display at home shows and fairs and farmers market, wherever I could have a table. And I would, people would come up, oh, what are you doing? And then when I said worms, they were like, oh, worms in the house. No, not for me. And they'd move along. And I was like, how am I going to do this if people are afraid of worms like I was? And then I started to take on school workshops and I was like, now I just have to wait 20 years till they have buying power. Yay, I'm here. I've arrived.
Well, congratulations. What a story. Thanks for sharing that, Cathy. In business, I could only imagine with you doing what you did, the ups and downs, as you know, Cathy, are sometimes the same moment, right? You might feel up and you might feel down, and it's the same moment. Sometimes it's different times. And I'm sure you've faced many of them. Maybe you could highlight for us one of your down times that you felt like the world is ending, it's not going to work, I better figure something else out. Maybe one of
Yeah,
those.
I think it was about 10 years in. I have a lot of energy and you know, when you believe something, when you're like, okay, everybody needs this, we don't buy what we need, we buy what we want. So people don't want worms in the house, even though they need them. Right? Because imagine if everybody had worms in their house, like managing their scraps. Once we get over the ick factor and whatever the, you know, the gross worms in the house, and we're managing those scraps, the food scraps, the paper, and the worms are converting it into black gold. We're not trucking that stuff around. We don't have to think about it anymore. How beautiful, right? Then we're just growing more nutrient rich food. So about 10 years in, one more person said, ooh, worms in the house. And I was like, what am I going to do? This is too hard. People don't want what I have.
Mhm.
And at that point, I was thought I should maybe toss this aside and, you know, but you can't go against why you're here, Faris. I think you probably know that. You know, we're all here for a reason. And once we discover why we're here and we go with it, then life opens up and it's like, you know, magic happens because we're on purpose. We feel good. We're doing good work, whatever that is. I mean, I'm doing really good work because I'm saving the planet, but you know, and inspiring the younger folks. I think part of my role here is inspiring the young to take on what I'm doing. So then just we have lots of worm farmers, we have lots of people doing all of these wonderful pieces for more nutrient rich food. Again, our food is broken. Yeah, so that was one of the low spots where I was just like, and then I was introduced to laughter yoga. So things come along just when you're ready to give up, the universe says, oh, are you sure? Let's see. And I was introduced to laughter yoga, which now I'm a laughter teacher, but that helped me to become more resilient. Now I'm a laugher. I'm a laughing person. I just laugh all the time because when we're laughing, it raises our vibration. When we feel good, we do good. And it kind of goes around. When we're sad and depressed and feeling anxious, we're kind of looking down and we're actually operating at a slower pace. Laughing and raising our vibration just helps us to be to cope better with what's going on. And during this cuckoo time we're in, it's really stressful. So we're not laughing at, laughter yogis are not laughing at the situation, we're laughing because of.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing that I don't know if we'll have time to even. I know I get a lot of entrepreneurs tell me, Faris, 10 minutes. By the time I say hello to you, it's 10 minutes. I'm like, I know, but I'm trying to, deploy a message that's really important with a short period of time. And I'm hoping that people are interested, so they'll obviously connect with you online and connect with you in person and follow up. And that's really one of, why we're here. So what an interesting story. And I'd like to also hear a little bit at one point, if we have time, about this laughter yoga. But I want to stay with the one business that you have right now. And, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back after this. Thank you so much, Cathy, being with us. This is the Finjan Show. I'm your host, Faris Alami, and we'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, Cathy.
Thank you. So here.
What a story. So when did you start doing the laughter yoga?
So I was introduced in about 2013, and then I became trained as a leader, teacher, and yeah, so it's so beautiful. Now I laugh every day.
That's awesome. And do you do this every day, or you do it a couple of times a week, or?
Every day I laugh every day. It's part of my health regime. You know, it's not doing poses or whatever. It's just intentional laughter exercises. And there's, laughter is the best medicine. We've heard that, and that's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, my wife has always kind of like questioned me when I laughed after a tragedy. And I said, sometimes, that's the easiest way to overcome the tragedy is to laugh, not at the tragedy because it's a tragedy, but through the tragedy. So therefore, you could process it maybe in a different way with the different cells or brain cells that you might have or different sphere. But I'm sure at one point you do need to make the space to grieve over those kinds of things to make it go away, maybe. So, or move forward with it. Cool. So you've gave us one of your maybe down. There are also lots of ups in business, right? Sometimes you feel like you're on top of the world or in the moon or somewhere in the sky, whatever terminology you want to use. And there are probably many of them. Would you mind sharing with us one of those moments where you felt like the world is under control, you're making it a better place, it's going to work?
Absolutely. So, well, this might be a shock to people that are listening or watching. I don't have a cell phone, but as a non-cell, it's part of my brand. It's fine. In 2012, there was a big year in 2012. It's interesting, the different years. I was on, so I'm on social media, but when I'm on social media, I'm at home. I'm on my desktop. So I was on Twitter, and I chose media as my marketing strategy, Faris. So I was on Twitter because that's where the journalists hang out. And there was an organization in Guatemala that does red wiggler worms. And I just commented, said, what a cool organization, a link to their website. And within 5 minutes, I just said red wigglers are the way. Within 5 minutes, the founder of that organization contacted me and said, thank you for your post. When can you come to Guatemala? We need you. And I was like, what? Guatemala wants me to come there? Hallelujah. How am I going to get there? I was like, oh, Guatemala, they don't have money. How am I going to get there? And then I just spoke to a friend, and I'm not independently wealthy. I can't just go. So not yet. So just talking to a friend, I said, oh, this cool thing on Twitter, my ego was like, wow, Guatemala wants me to come there. How fun. And she said, I'm going to host a fundraiser. So we hosted a movie night. Businesses donated prizes. So we had a raffle. We raised $3,000 in one night. I was able to go to Guatemala, talk about worms, and have a travel around. That was a highlight. I turned 50. That was the first time. I've been with my husband since driving school. I was 16, he was 17. That's true. And so, we've done everything together. I really haven't ever traveled on my own. So that was, I turned 50 in 2012. And so for my 50th birthday, I got to go to Guatemala, talk about my business. And, it was paid for, but through the wonderful donations of people. And I was able to leave a bunch of money in Guatemala with the organization. And yeah, it was so beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you.
What a story. And there's just so much that we could unfold in any of these nuggets that you're giving us here, Cathy. So, wanting to go to a place that you've never been, you've never traveled on your own, yet alone, again, taking this, risk of going some places that you don't know, but seeing an opportunity that you felt like you could make an impact on. And then necessarily for the money, because there was no money for you to make out of $3,000, because that's probably, the hotel and the flight is maybe more than that. So